I got home early that day. No warning. No real reason beyond a down server at the office and a headache I couldn't shake. The building's AC had gone out again, and the whole floor smelled like stale coffee and old ambition. People were restless, so when management gave the go-ahead to call it a day, I didn't hesitate. Driving home, I had no idea anything was wrong. Nothing in my gut warned me. No storm clouds brewing in my rearview mirror. Just the usual highway traffic, a podcast playing low in the background, and thoughts of maybe ordering Thai for dinner and zoning out in front of the TV. But something shifted the second I opened our front door. It was subtle, the kind of thing most people wouldn't notice. But I've lived in this house for years. I know its rhythms. The quiet hum of the fridge, the slight draft in the hallway when the back door isn't shut all the way. But this time, the air felt unsettled, like someone had just been there. I walked through the entryway, passing by Amber's potted succulents on the windowsill. Still healthy, still overwatered. Her mail lay scattered on the console table like always. Half-open bills, a coupon for some new yoga studio she probably meant to check out but never would. Everything looked normal, but it didn't feel normal. I set my keys down, kicked off my shoes, and turned toward the kitchen. And that's when I saw it. A black lace bra, draped casually, almost carelessly, over the back of one of our dining room chairs. Like it had been thrown there in a rush. Like someone didn't care if it got noticed or not. I stopped cold. It wasn't Amber's. That I knew for sure. I couldn't tell you the brand or the exact size, but I knew her drawer. I knew what she wore. Comfortable, neutral stuff. The kind of underthings chosen for utility, not flair. Even when we were still in that phase, when things between us were new, passionate, electric, she never wore lace like that. And this one was different. It looked expensive, a little too bold. The kind of thing that made a statement. The kind of thing you wore for someone. I stepped closer, half hoping I was wrong. Maybe it was hers, some impulse buy she forgot about. Maybe it got mixed in with the laundry. Maybe it belonged to a friend. Anything reasonable. But then I smelled it. Not her scent. Not the soft vanilla amber blend she wore. The one that used to cling to my t-shirts long after she hugged me goodbye. No, this was heavier. Muskier. A strange mix of floral and cologne. Cologne. My stomach tightened. I didn't touch the bra. I just stared at it like it might change shapes if I waited long enough. Like it might disappear and take that sinking feeling in my chest with it. Didn't. I sat on the edge of the couch for a while, trying to process it. My thoughts were scrambled, looping over themselves. This couldn't be what it looked like. Amber wouldn't do that. We were fine, weren't we? I thought about the last few weeks. She'd been distracted lately, more glued to her phone, laughing at texts she wouldn't share, saying she was tired more often, going out more, 2 spinning classes, she said, late ones. It helps me clear my head, she told me one night as she left the house in leggings and a new sports bra I hadn't seen before. I didn't question it then. Maybe I didn't want to. But now I couldn't stop. Time passed. I don't know how long. Maybe an hour. Maybe more. I was still sitting there when I heard her keys at the front door. Hey, babe, she called out, her voice chipper, like she was coming back from a yoga retreat, not walking into a war zone. I didn't answer. She came in holding 2 paper bags and a plastic coffee cup. Her sunglasses were still on. She was mid-call, tucked between a laugh and a goodbye as she shut the door with her foot. I could hear someone's voice on speaker, female, upbeat, maybe a coworker. She paused when she saw me. Then her eyes flicked over to the chair. I watched her. I watched how she saw it. She didn't freeze. Didn't jump. There was a flicker, a half-second delay where her brain probably scrambled for a story. But she didn't miss a beat. Oh, she said with a little laugh, setting the bags down. That's not mine. Ugh, seriously, I think it got mixed in with my stuff at the gym. She picked it up like it was no big deal. You know how crowded it gets. Some girl must have dropped it in my locker or something. AW. She smiled, waved it off, carried it toward the laundry room like it was nothing but a mix-up. Like bras just spontaneously appeared in our home all the time. I didn't say a word. I just nodded barely, and watched her walk down the hall. She returned a minute later, empty-handed, and started unpacking the groceries like nothing had happened. "Got your almond milk," she said cheerfully. "And that weird granola you like with the pumpkin seeds." She talked the whole time. Weather, work, some new show on Netflix. She even kissed my temple at one point, light practiced, like she was trying to pull me back into the performance. But I couldn't play along, because I kept seeing that bra, sitting there like a landmine, out in the open, as if I wasn't supposed to notice, or as if it didn't matter whether I did. That scared me more than anything, because if she had done something, and if she was that calm, that smooth about brushing it off, what else had I missed? I couldn't stop thinking about it the rest of the night. I lay in bed long after she fell asleep, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself I was being paranoid, that the story made sense, that coincidences happen. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw lace, and cologne, and that flicker in her eyes when she saw it. A shift happened in me that night, quiet but permanent, like the tiniest crack in a windshield. One you could drive around with for a while, pretending it wasn't there. But deep down, you know it'll spread. It always does. I woke up the next morning before my alarm, staring at the soft blue shadows stretching across the bedroom ceiling. Amber was still asleep beside me, curled into the blankets like nothing had happened. Her breathing was steady, peaceful. I watched her for a long time, trying to find something, anything, that would make me feel normal again. But all I could think about was the bra, the scent, the way she picked it up so easily, the fact that it was out in the open like it belonged there. It wasn't just an accident. I knew that now, not because I had proof, but because my gut wouldn't shut up. You don't forget how someone smells. You don't forget what your partner wears or doesn't wear. And you definitely don't forget the sound of your own intuition screaming at you. All morning, I moved through the motions like I was on autopilot. Coffee, shower, tie, shoes. I kissed Amber on the cheek before heading out the door, and she smiled sleepily, murmuring something about having errands later. It was so casual, so familiar. That scared me, how easy it was for her to slip back into our routine. But I couldn't. Not anymore. On the drive to work, I started thinking back. Not just to the last few days, but to the last few months. The little things. The patterns I'd brushed off as nothing. The explanations I'd accepted because I didn't want to seem jealous or paranoid or controlling. Started small. Amber used to leave her phone face up on the coffee table. Now it was always face down, and silenced. She used to answer texts in front of me without a second thought. Now she stepped out of the room more often. Said it was work stuff, or a group chat that was just drama. She started sorting the laundry. That sounds ridiculous to say out loud. But I noticed. Amber never cared before. She'd dump everything, socks, gym clothes, delicates, into one load. But lately, she'd stand over the hamper, picking through things, separating what she called sensitive pieces, like she didn't want me touching certain things anymore. Then there was the gym schedule. For years, she was a morning runner. Headphones, ponytail, out the door by 7 o'clock. But a few months back, she started doing evening classes. Spin and sculpt, she called it. 3 nights a week. And each time, she came home flushed, breathless, but never sore. Sometimes she'd still be wearing makeup. Other times, she'd head straight to the shower before even saying hello. I joked once, asking if she was lifting dumbbells or dodging paparazzi. She'd laughed too loud, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Just trying to keep up with the 20-somethings. I didn't press her. I should have. Then there were the bruises. One night, maybe 6 weeks ago, I noticed faint marks across her lower back. Not like she'd fallen. Not like anything from the gym. They were too specific. Finger-shaped. I asked gently what happened. She looked startled, then shrugged it off as leaning wrong on a bench during crunches. It didn't sit right with me, but I let it go. That's what I keep circling back to, how many things I let go. There was a night, not long ago, when we were in bed, lying side by side, scrolling on our phones. I glanced over, expecting to see her deep into her usual home decor rabbit hole, but her screen went dark the second she noticed me looking. She smiled and turned it over, saying, "Nothing exciting, just work emails." I didn't ask again. It was easier not to, because facing the truth meant risking what we had. And I wasn't ready to lose it. Not then. Not even now, really. But denial only gets you so far before reality starts rearranging the furniture in your head. I remember this one Sunday morning. We were having pancakes, music playing low, sunlight pouring through the kitchen window. Amber stood by the stove flipping batter, humming along. Her phone buzzed on the counter behind me. She didn't even glance at it, just kept cooking. But I caught a glimpse of the name on the screen before it dimmed. Evan G. No emoji, no context, just a name I didn't recognize. When I asked her who he was, she blinked like I'd asked something strange. "Oh, he's just from the gym," she said, turning back to the stove. "Helps run the evening classes." I didn't push, even though she'd never mentioned him before, even though his name kept showing up on her phone notifications after that. Late at night, early mornings, weekends. Back then, I still believed that trust meant believing the person you loved wouldn't lie to you. Now, I think trust means noticing when they do and deciding what to do with that knowledge. I made it through the day at work in a haze. I stared at spreadsheets, nodded through meetings, even laughed at a few jokes I didn't really hear. But all day, I kept picturing Amber sorting the laundry, her hands moving a little too fast, her eyes darting toward the doorway. I pictured her slipping out the door in her new leggings, the ones I hadn't seen before, high-waisted, tight, still had a tag on them when they arrived in the mail addressed to her, but with no return label. That evening, I got home before her. The house felt empty. I sat in the kitchen and waited, not for any reason, just because I couldn't think of anything else to do. When she finally walked through the door, she looked surprised to see me already home. "Hey, you're back early," she said, brushing snow off her coat. "Everything okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, just slow day." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Then she pulled her phone from her coat pocket, glanced at the screen, and turned it face down on the counter. That small movement, that stupid, meaningless reflex, it shattered something in me. I excused myself and went to the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the lamp. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to start something, but I couldn't keep pretending like I hadn't noticed how much distance had crept in. I lay awake again that night. Her breathing beside me was calm, steady, innocent almost. I kept thinking, what if it was just my imagination? What if this was all some elaborate misunderstanding, some series of coincidences my brain was stringing together into a false story? But then again, what if it wasn't? What if the truth was staring me in the face, and I just didn't want to see it? I turned to look at her, the way she slept so easily, peacefully, like she hadn't left anything behind. But I had. Something in me was unraveling now, quietly, slowly, and there was no turning it back. It was late on a Wednesday night when I sat down and did something I never thought I'd do. I opened our shared laptop and went digging. I didn't want to. God knows I wanted to believe I was wrong. That the tension, the unease, the patterns, I wanted them to be figments of an overworked imagination. But they weren't. They'd been adding up for weeks, maybe months, and they weren't going away. And so, with Amber asleep just down the hall, I opened her browser and started scrolling. Her Gmail was still logged in. The inbox looked clean, like she'd wiped it. But in her archived folder, buried beneath newsletters and automated shipping alerts, were threads. One name showed up too often, Evan G. It started casual. Jokes about spin class, banter about playlists. Then came longer messages. Talks about life. About stress. About things she couldn't tell anyone else. Then came the "I needed that today" kind of texts. Then one that froze me in place. "Still thinking about last night. I can't stop smiling." That was from 3 weeks ago. She had told me she was at her sister's that night. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the screen until the words blurred. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. It was something colder. More detached. Like watching someone slowly move out of a house you still lived in. Like realizing the life you thought you were living had already been replaced with a version that didn't include you. I didn't confront her that night. I shut the laptop and went back to bed. She stirred when I got in, whispering, "Everything okay?" I said yes. She rolled over and went right back to sleep. The next day, I sat in my car during lunch and started making calls. Discreet ones. Amber had mentioned that her friend Kelly's bachelorette party was coming up, a weekend away in Santa Clara. I remembered the name of the hotel. She had said it in passing while looking at rental cars. The Pacific Marina. That's where I started. It felt ridiculous at first, like I was stepping into some bad private eye novel. I didn't even know what I was asking for. But when I explained to the hotel manager that I might need help confirming a reservation and possibly a delivery, well, let's just say money still opens doors. I Venmo'd him the agreed tip before we hung up. And then I waited. 2 nights later, Amber left. She had a small suitcase, a pink sash tucked into her purse, and a bottle of rose wrapped in tissue paper. "I'll send you pics," she said, pecking me on the cheek. "Try not to miss me too much." I watched her walk out the door like she was heading into a commercial. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling until the dawn pushed shadows across the floor. Her side of the bed still smelled like her shampoo. Her pillow looked too neat. I thought about texting her. Just something casual. "Hey, how's it going?" But I didn't. I didn't want her to lie to me. Not again. Around 10 a.m., I got the call. The front desk manager, Greg, had spotted her that morning with her friends at the hotel's breakfast bar. Said everything looked normal. Until the night before, around 11:30 p.m., when a man had entered her room. No luggage. No name on file. He left at 7:10 that morning. I didn't say anything. I didn't yell or threaten or ask for more detail. I just said thank you and ended the call. I packed a bag within the hour. Santa Clara was a 2-hour drive. I didn't even think. I just drove. The road blurred. The radio was silent. And my hands stayed clenched on the wheel the whole time. My stomach was tight the way it gets before a big presentation. Except this wasn't a job. This was my life. When I arrived, I didn't go to her room. I didn't knock or text or create a scene. I waited in the lobby, near a plant by the front entrance. It was a clean, modern hotel, with sand-colored tiles and sunlight pouring in through the tall windows. People came and went. A group of women laughed near the elevator, carrying beach bags and iced coffees. None of them were her. I checked the time. Then I saw her. Amber stepped out of the elevator with 2 of her friends, chatting easily. She looked relaxed. The kind of glow that only comes after a weekend of getting exactly what you want. She didn't see me at first. Then the front desk clerk, a different guy this time, stepped forward. He held a small hotel laundry bag, handed it to her like it was a lost item. I saw her smile falter. She opened it just enough to peek inside. I knew what she saw. I had dropped it off earlier that morning. The black lace bra, the one from our dining room chair. She stopped cold. Her friends froze beside her, glancing between Amber and the bag, clearly confused. And that's when she saw me. I was standing across the lobby. Not hidden. Not dramatic. Just there. Watching. She didn't speak. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her face drained of color, like something had ruptured behind her eyes. We didn't make a scene. I didn't walk over. I didn't yell. I didn't wave the bag in her face or demand explanations. I just looked at her, long enough for her to know she'd been seen, long enough for her to understand that whatever space she thought existed between her lies and my world, it was gone now. Then I turned and walked out. The sound of the hotel door closing behind me felt louder than it should have. Outside, the sun was bright and blinding. Tourists passed by, dragging suitcases, smiling. A child screamed in delight over a melting popsicle. Life kept moving. I got in my car and started driving north. Not home. Somewhere else. I didn't go home. I didn't even think about going home. After I left the hotel, I drove. No destination, no GPS. I just let the highway pull me north like a current I wasn't fighting anymore. I passed through unfamiliar towns, past gas stations and thrift shops and diners with peeling paint. I didn't stop until the sun was already starting to set, turning the world the color of a faded bruise. I ended up at the cabin. It had been my dad's. Years ago. A small, beat-up thing near a lake that never got tourists and barely showed up on maps. He used to bring me here in the summers, back when things were simpler, when silence was something that felt full, not empty. I hadn't been there in years. But the key was still under the crooked flower pot beside the door. The place was musty, the kind of cold that settles into your bones. The furniture hadn't moved since the last time I'd visited. The same chipped green mug still sat in the sink. A stack of firewood leaned against the wall. Dust clung to every surface like a second skin. And somehow it felt like exactly where I needed to be. There was no cell signal, no internet, no cable, just a transistor radio that still half worked, a fireplace that needed coaxing, and a faded quilt that smelled like old pine and mothballs. I didn't tell anyone I was there, not even my brother, not my friends, just disappeared. That first night I didn't sleep much. I stared at the ceiling in the same bed where I'd slept as a kid, listened to the wind slip through the cracks in the windows, watched the shadows shift like they were trying to write messages I wasn't ready to read. I kept seeing her face, Amber, the way her expression collapsed in that hotel lobby, the way she didn't say a word, like silence was the only honest thing she had left. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel anger, not in the way I expected. What I felt was hollow, like someone had reached inside and taken something that used to anchor me, and now I was just floating, untethered. The next morning, I sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, holding a mug of black coffee that had gone cold hours ago. The lake was still, a sheet of glass reflecting the overcast sky. The only sound came from a pair of crows calling in the distance. I didn't move, not for hours. At some point, I started a fire, cooked eggs that tasted like nothing, stared at the wall for a while, then tried reading an old book I found on the shelf. I got through 2 pages before I realized I hadn't absorbed a single word. That's how the next few days went. Wake up, stare, eat, breathe, think. It's strange what comes back to you in silence. Things you buried. Moments you talked yourself out of noticing. Like the time Amber came home late from one of those work meetups and still had her necklace on backwards. Said it must have slipped that way. Or the time she laughed at a text and locked her phone immediately when she saw me watching. Back then, I told myself I was overthinking. Now, those memories played on loop, clear as day. She'd been gone for a long time emotionally. I just hadn't wanted to see it. I kept trying to fill the space with distractions, weekend plans, house projects, date nights that felt more like rituals than connections. I thought I was keeping us together. Really, I was just building around the hollow part. And now there was nothing left to build on. On the 3rd day, I found an old spiral notebook in the drawer of the nightstand. The cover was faded, the pages yellowing at the edges. I took it out to the porch, along with a pen, and just sat there. At first, I didn't know what to write. Then I just started jotting down memories. Not the dramatic ones, not the betrayal, but the quiet ones. Her humming while brushing her teeth. The way she used to tuck her feet under me on the couch. How she laughed, really laughed, when I accidentally wore mismatched socks to a wedding. The note she once left in my coat pocket on a random Tuesday. In case you forgot, you're kind of my favorite person. I filled 5 pages that morning. Then I started writing other things. Not about her, about me. About how long I'd ignored my gut. How many times I'd told myself we were just in a rough patch. How I'd shrunk myself to keep her happy. How I'd convinced myself that being the stable one meant not asking questions. Stability and silence aren't the same. One is strength. The other is fear. I kept writing every day. It became a ritual. Brew coffee, light the fireplace, and open the notebook. Some days I wrote for hours. Others just a sentence. But it helped. It grounded me. The stillness did too. I chopped wood, took walks around the lake, sat with myself. That's the part no one warns you about. How hard it is to just be with yourself after someone's left a mess behind. You want to keep moving, keep fixing. But sometimes, the only way forward is to sit still and let the truth catch up. A week passed. Then another. I didn't check my phone for days. When I finally powered it on, I had 67 unread messages. Most were from Amber. The first few were light. Hey, just checking in. Hope everything's okay. I'm back from the trip. Can we talk? I know you're hurt. I need to explain. Then they shifted. Please answer. I didn't want to hurt you. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Please don't shut me out. You don't know the whole story. I need to talk to you face to face. Then came the long one. 5 paragraphs. How she'd been feeling alone. Disconnected. How Evan just listened when she felt like she was drowning. How it started as emotional, but crossed a line she hadn't meant to cross. How it didn't mean anything. How she wanted to fix it. How she still loved me. I didn't respond. I didn't even reread it. There was nothing in her message that changed what had happened. Words couldn't rewind time or undo the way I felt standing in that hotel lobby, watching her face shatter around a truth she never expected me to see. I didn't need closure from her. I needed clarity from myself. That night, I wrote something new in the notebook. Something simple. 1 sentence. She lied, and I stayed too long. I underlined it twice. Then I closed the book, tossed another log on the fire, and stared at the flames until they blurred into a soft orange haze. I didn't know what would come next, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't scared of it. I stayed at the cabin longer than I meant to. At first, it was just supposed to be a few days. Time to clear my head, figure out what came next. But the silence had a gravity to it. Pulled me in. Made me forget what day it was. Made me forget the need to answer anyone's questions, especially hers. I didn't mark the calendar, but I know it was around the end of the second week that I started noticing the shift. Not in the world around me, but in myself. I wasn't checking the door anymore. Wasn't listening for her voice. Wasn't waiting for an explanation I knew would never be enough. When I finally powered my phone back on, the messages came flooding in. It buzzed for 5 straight minutes. I just let it hum in my palm like a distant alarm I had no intention of silencing. Most of the messages were from her. Amber had written me a small novel, broken across dozens of texts, voicemails, and emails. The tone started soft, remorseful, cautious. Then it turned urgent, then desperate. Some messages read like therapy monologues. Others were just strings of apologies, sent at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning when her guilt was probably louder than her pride. I scrolled. Colton, please, just read this. I never wanted to hurt you. You don't know what it's been like living with myself since you left. I'm broken too. He didn't mean anything. I was lost. I was stupid. I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy, counseling. I'll quit my job. I'll change gyms. Anything. There were voice notes too. I didn't listen, just saw the timestamps. Some were long. Others were 30 seconds of silence followed by a whispered, I miss you. But the one that stuck out, the one that made me pause, was from 3 nights ago. Subject, please don't erase me. I know I don't deserve your kindness, but I need to say this anyway. I thought I could explain it away, make it sound like a mistake that just happened. But the truth is uglier. I didn't feel seen. And Evan? He made me feel like I mattered. But the second I saw you in that lobby, I realized how wrong I'd been. You were the one who mattered. You always were. I was selfish and small and scared. I hope someday you can forgive me. But if you can't, I'll still be grateful that you loved me the way you did. I just wish I'd valued it when it counted. I read it once, then again, and then I deleted it. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just didn't need it anymore, because the silence I had built around me wasn't hollow. It was honest, and honesty was something we hadn't had in our home for a long time, maybe even before Evan. The next morning I packed my bag, folded the blanket, put the mug back in the cabinet, left the notebook on the porch railing with the last page bookmarked. It read, she wasn't the end of me, just the end of who I thought I had to be. The drive back to the city was quiet. I didn't play music, didn't make any calls. I just watched the trees thin out into buildings, watched the signs get more familiar, watched the speed of everything return to what it had been before I hit pause. When I pulled into our parking spot, I just sat there for a while, engine off, hand resting on the wheel like I was waiting for something. But there was no fanfare, no dramatic return, just the hollow sound of the gearshift moving to park. I walked up the stairs, key in hand, and opened the door. The apartment hadn't changed. Her robe was still hanging behind the bedroom door. The crooked photo on the shelf, us at the fair 3 summers ago, was still tilted slightly left. Her mug with the chipped rim still sat in the sink. It felt haunted by a life that no longer existed. And then I saw her, Amber, sitting on the floor by the front entrance. She looked small in a way I didn't remember her ever looking. Like the weight of everything had finally dragged her down to ground level. She didn't say a word, didn't look up. Her suitcase was beside her, half-zipped. She must have been there a while. I stepped past her without a word, walked to the windows, opened all of them, let the air in. It was stuffy in the way grief is, thick, unmoving, heavy. I cracked open the bedroom, then the kitchen, then slid the balcony door until I could feel the cold slip through like a baptism. She stayed where she was, eyes fixed on the floor. Eventually, I sat on the couch, the same spot where she used to curl beside me, the same place where I first noticed the silence growing between us. I didn't look at her. She stood, hovered by the kitchen for a moment, then grabbed her bag and left. No speech, no final plea, no breakdown, just the sound of the door clicking shut behind her. And just like that, she was gone. I didn't move for a long time. I just sat there, breathing in the new air like it might turn me into someone else. But I didn't feel new. I felt honest. That was enough. Later that night, I cleaned the fridge, tossed out the expired yogurt she liked, pulled her jacket off the coat rack and put it in a bin. Not in anger, not in spite, just order. I didn't erase her. I just started reclaiming space. I found her necklace under the couch, the one with the tiny silver charm shaped like a wave. I set it on the bookshelf, next to the dusty wine glass she always ignored. I wasn't ready to throw it away. Some things take time. The next day, I returned to work. People asked if I'd been on vacation. I nodded. Let them believe whatever version made them comfortable. I didn't know anyone the story. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That evening, I stood in our kitchen, just me now, and cooked dinner like I used to before the routines changed. Pasta. Too much garlic. A beer from the back of the fridge. I ate at the counter, barefoot, watching the sky dim through the window above the sink. Her absence didn't echo the way I thought it would. It just sat, like a box I'd finally moved from the center of the room to the corner. Still there, but not in the way. I checked my phone once before bed. No new messages. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't wonder if that meant something was wrong. It just meant it was quiet. And quiet, I was learning, could be a beginning.